Hi there, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be doing another doll repaint for you. The theme this time around is the Goblincore aesthetic. If you haven't ever come across this, it's kind of like if cottagecore and dark academia had a baby. This means a lot of dark, kind of foresty earth tones and a somewhat vintage-inspired style. I have also heard it referred to as hobbitcore or forestcore or adventurecore, I think, as well. However, we are going with Goblincore for the purposes of this video, because my plan is to make a Goblincore character who is an actual goblin. So, without further ado, let's get into the repaint. For our base doll today, I have this Venus McFlytrap that I got on eBay for 99 pence. She's in fairly good condition overall, aside from some rubbing to her flocking on the undercut here. However, the rest of her hair is in fairly good condition, so I'm just going to tie it up before trimming it away so that I can reuse it on another project. With that all gone, I'm just boiling up some water that I can use to soften the head and make it much easier to remove from the body. While it's squishy, I'm also taking the opportunity to scrape the remaining hair plugs out with a tool, and then extracting them from the neck hole with some tweezers. Finally, I can scrape away all this remaining flocking, which leaves us with a nice clean head. To make it even cleaner, I'm using this acetone nail polish remover to wipe away her factory face paint. And that'll leave us with a good base to work on. Next, I'm taking some measurements that I can use to draft a pattern for her outfit. If you'd like a more detailed look at how I make patterns based on doll measurements, I have several tutorials for that on my channel. Here is the sketch that I made to plan the outfit, which, as you can see, consists of a collared undershirt, a sweater vest, baggy corduroy trousers, and some boots, all in whatever autumnal colours I could find in my fabric box. For her sweater vest, I went with this woolly sock, as it was the closest I could get to a kind of argyle knit fabric, and my sensory issues prevent me from wearing them as socks anyway, so might as well recycle where I can. Similarly, for her trousers, we have a corduroy offcut from a pair of human-sized trousers that I had to alter the length of somewhat, which is definitely a silver lining for being quite short. For her other top, I just recycled some jersey from an old t-shirt, and I also used a little scrap of cotton for the collar. However, I completely forgot to film that part. With the outfit all done, I can move on to making hair. I do this by brushing out some strands of unraveled acrylic yarn, and when they're all fluffy and soft, I can use a hair straightener to flatten out the fibres and leave it nice and silky. I used 2 shades of orange yarn just for variety. Before I can plug the hair though, I have to make holes in the unrooted side of her head, which I'm doing with this little hand drill. While we're here, I also want to modify her ears to be larger and extend out to the sides, inspired by the Greta Gremlin Skeletor doll from a few years ago. To do this, I must first remove her original ears, and then I'm drilling another hole for a wire armature to slot into, which I can sculpt onto for support. I'm using light green polymer clay for the ears, which isn't an exact colour match, but it'll make for a good base colour when I eventually paint them. Once this was sculpted, I removed it from the head and made a second one off camera, and then baked them in the oven until they were solid. While we wait for them, we can begin rooting. For this, I swap out the drill bit in my hand drill for a needle with the eye cut at an angle for a homemade rooting tool. The hair strands slot into the needle eye, and then I just poke it into the pre-made holes all over her head and repeat about a bazillion times, which is only a tiny bit of an exaggeration. And she finally has a full head of hair. The ears are baked and cooled now, so I can poke them in too with some added glue for extra security. Now to add some paint for a better colour match, and they are all done too. Last but not least, this is the design for her face. I decided to give her a bit of a wink to show her cheeky personality. I began, as always, with a coat of MSC sealant before sketching on a rough approximation of her features. Once happy with the sketch, I filled in the sclera of her open eye with white acrylic paint. And then went about adding details and colour with my watercolour pencils. Adding more sealant between layers allows me to build up the values and opacity gradually. The great thing about watercolour pencils is that you can blend and move them around with just a damp paintbrush after applying. I wanted to show some teeth in her cheeky grin as well, so I added them with acrylic paint too. Next, I shaved down some chalk pastels and used the powder to add shading and dimension to her face. I decided that yellow would make for a good blush on green skin, and I think it really helped bring life to her face. Finally, I just added the last touches of white highlight. And her face is all finished. Now to get her all dressed up in the clothes we made her. And style her hair, which I chose to do with some pigtailed braids. I trim any ends that I need to with a craft knife to feather them more naturally. I also decided she needed micro bangs, which I cut, feathered and then flattened overnight with an elastic band. For her boots, we have some DC Superhero Girl shoes, which I think were from Batgirl, that I just stripped down and am painting in a dark brown, before dry brushing with some lighter shades to make them more realistic. DC Superhero Girls have different shaped feet than Monster High, so they won't fit on their own, so I just made her some socks instead to help keep them on. Her belt is made from a little strip of vinyl that I painted with acrylic paint and Mod Podge to be the right colour. And then the gold belt buckle is from a seller on Etsy that makes lots of miniature sewing supplies. I used little pieces of scrap fabric to make some pouches and bags to go on the belt that she can store all her little collections and findings in. Finally, I'm just adding this detail of a little acorn charm I found in my supplies, as well as piercing her ear. And with that all done, I can now introduce Griselda Goblin. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would very much appreciate a like and maybe even a subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I'll see you next time. Bye!